Okay, now Tom Matrullo is going to take it from here.
Thanks, Bill. One of the things that is becoming a theme tonight is the question of how did these bad ideas even occur to people? I mean, you know, why would somebody do this or think of doing this? One commissioner that Adrian and I met with a couple of weeks ago pointed out that you can't prohibit people from offering bad ideas. All you can do is hopefully have a code that expresses the judgment of the community that those bad ideas are not going to be acted upon. Well, that's what got me interested in this project, so what I'm doing is talking about the code tonight. And that's why I call this the code predicament. Now, to back up a little bit, for about 20 years, people have been buying homes on East Palmer Boulevard. The Audubon Society, as you just heard, has built $1 million nature center at the celery fields. And the county has built Tatum Ridge Elementary School there. The Fruitful Initiative, which I'll get to in a little more, but Bill already mentioned it, and that took shape, and the packing house district has begun to flourish. All these are around, you can go to the next slide. Oh no, you can't go to that slide yet. All these are around the celery fields. They've all relied on the word of realtors, developers, and builders that this area of Sarasota would retain the character that's been developing over those 2 decades. A rural place, rich in wildlife, good for kids and adults, and removed from the harsh grind of traffic and industry. Then came Bo. Now, this is Bo Medred, and I'm not making this in any way about him, but about what I'm calling Bo Code. What Mr. Medred does is represent people who want to do things in the county. Mr. Medred and his client, James Gabbard, see in this location industry, not just light industry like the industrial parks around there have light industry, which it's clean, it doesn't bother anybody. They envision heavy industry with grinding concrete and yard waste and drywall and big trucks. We're talking again about the quad. In their application to build a waste processing facility next to the celery fields, would be on this lot here, they cite a document from 1992 which designated these lands east of I-75 as a future land use MEC. MEC means Major Employment Center. Now, that's what you can do if you know the code. The code, which is supposed to be a fine-tuned instrument for rational organization of our lands and uses, can allow industry on 3 parcels near the celery fields, and somehow that just seems not quite in tune. Next. Mr. Medred, though, is not the one to blame for this. He's not twisting our code, he's using it to erase 25 years of natural and social development because he can. This has led to a conflict of reliance. The people who live around there have relied on their understanding of the community's character and upon their experience of the last 20 years. Mr. Medred is relying on a 25-year-old piece of paper that says, despite what you all believe, this actually is an industrial area. Excellent. So, what we have then, as people were talking about, is Restaurant Depot, which got knocked out, James Gabbard's Industrial, and then the third parcel, which the county just recently put out for sale, is also slated to be rezoned industrial. Nice. Now, here's a bit of the larger picture. The quad is the little parcels in the middle. You notice they're in the middle. They're at an intersection that actually connects all these other things. These have been developing over 20 years. The Fruitful Initiative is a concept plan, but it's approved, it's voted on, it's going to happen. The celery fields is pure serendipity. Nobody planned it, except for the stormwater part. And the third is a burgeoning commercial sector, the packing house district. And the fourth, actually not in this picture, is the East Palmer communities, of which there are several. Now, for a moment, the Fruitful Initiative, which is, here's I-75 and Fruitful Road here, and this is all a deeply designed plan put together by the cooperation of the county residents, the people who live there, the landowners who own the land, and the county staff. And then they gave it to Palazoides firm in Miami, which did a $500,000 design for this project. It suggests that it could have a gateway to Sarasota feel to it. Museums, shops, cafes, as Bill mentioned, a visitor's center, easy access over a pedestrian bridge over this waterway that would take you into the celery fields for exercise, kayaking, birding, hiking. That would be a fine mixture of rural and urban uses. The Palazoides plan includes a river walk at the north end of the project. Now, no, that's good, you can go forward. I happened to go to the Bradenton Riverwalk yesterday. I couldn't believe the variety of uses that are going on up there. Just a quick, short list. Beach volleyball, plazas, skateboard park, public art, plazas for public festivals, a dry dock for boaters, an amphitheater, a lawn for lounging, the walkway is about 1.5 miles long, and there are museums, galleries, a planetarium, hotels, a performing arts center, and tons of parking. It is a fabulous public civic property. And if you go to the next slide, that was envisioned by Palazoides for the north side of the celery field. The same kind of thing. Kayaking, shops, cafes, all on the north side, and then easy access to the celery fields across the way. And guess how long that river walk would be? Steve? 1.5 miles, the same as the Bradenton Riverwalk. So there's tremendous potential in all these ideas. And there was another idea that came along as well in 2006. And that would be for the quad, the parcels under question here. The county may not know this, but there actually was, they paid Andres Dwani, the designer, to think about the quad, and he came up with a plan that sketched an idea for affordable housing. I'm killing the microphone. Okay, whatever. And a startup incubation area for entrepreneurs around the quad. So what they would do is they would rent a space for a year to come up with a business idea or an entrepreneurial idea, and for $1 a year, and at the end of that year, they'd either have a business, in which case they could start renting it for real money, or they'd go away. Anyway, just some of the ideas that came out in 2006 that have been floating around for the very parcels the county is thinking about putting a dump on. Next slide. This, by the way, is a little bit of what I hope Carlos will talk about in a minute, the number of homes on Palmer Boulevard. In 1992, 52 homes. In 2000, 306. 1,210, and by 2020, 1,922. Look at how it shoots up here. That's thanks to a new development at the very end of East Palmer called Artistry. 600 homes coming to For sure near you. So we have, on the one hand, a plan that actually goes back to 1983. The 92 was based upon an 83 plan. Ronnie was president. The Renault was the car of the year. And there were no homes in 1983, I don't think. There are a few. Today we have opportunity, we have the Fruitful Initiative, we have celery fields, we have the Packing House District, and soon several communities with a lot of people who care about their area. Next slide. That was my mind when I realized what they were trying to do here. Okay. There is a difference between the real world and code world. And we have to learn this. We have to take this in. Because it's not just a matter of sitting down with a couple of public officials and talking them into more sense. The code itself requires that they consider this as the way it was in 1992. Next slide. We have a comp plan full of policies. The economic policy, if you follow this little arrow, it says, one policy is to enhance Sarasota's draw as a premier national and international tourist destination. That's a policy of the comp plan. Next slide, please. So that is actually an image from the waste processing facility that James Gabbard built out at 8001 Fruitful Road. It's still going. You can go out there and look at it or bring stuff to dump, or you can take pictures. Does that look like a tourist attraction to you? So, in short, the code requires compliance with an MEC future land use set in 1992. The code tries to ensure fairness, but it cannot see changes in trends, it cannot hear the community, and it can't speak of compatibility and economic potential. Code impairs us. Compliance does not ensure taste. And this is a brief tour of our comp plan. This is just page one of millions of pages of policies. They just go on and on. Adrienne will probably count them before she's done. And this is one process, the flow chart for one process called a critical area plan. All the things that have to occur for a critical area plan to occur. And that's where we have a problem, because this is so complicated that it's hard for anybody to get their head wrapped around it. And it's sitting next to a surplus lands ordinance that is just the opposite. It's the simplest thing in the world. It says the administrator, an unelected official, has almost unlimited power to select public lands for surplusing and to recommend them to the board for sale. Next slide. Okay, go back for a second. Declaring real property as surplus is a discretionary act of the board. It is not subject to appeal. This is, as Adrienne said, imperial, almost godlike power, really. So I had a question about this. No, the next slide, yeah. It says, this recommendation will be presented to the board, the administrator's recommendation, and may address any or all of the following factors. And you see the factors. But legal people in the room, when it says may address any or all, can it also mean may address none? All right. This is an interesting statement from the paper. This goes back to when Benderson lost its truck idea. There's a lot to say about that, but we're not going into it, for the Fruitful Initiative. And Paul Caragiulo said, because this was a public property acquired from the county, you have to govern with more caution. With the code we have, how do we start that process of governing with more caution? What can we do to make this sort of planning debacle less possible? And what can we do about surplus landowners, surplus land superpowers we have given to our public officials? Well, a couple of possibilities. Rob mentioned them, but all the people in this room, a lot of you know more about this than I do, so I'm just going to throw these out. How can we constrain the surplus land powers, restore the role of the public before they're declared surplus lands, expand notification, consult with the people, put the people first, amend the charter? If all that fails, you go to the charter. Because if you can amend the charter to put constraints on the public lands ordinance, then they can't do what they now think they can do. And with that, I conclude with Adrian's fabulous map of the whole area.